The Talking Transformation podcast has been live now for 2 weeks, and since then we've had an overwhelmingly positive response to the episodes and the personalities that we presented via this podcast platform. Many thanks to each and every one of you who's taken the time and effort to listen, engage and to encourage, and this week we'll see us launch our 5th interview. It's an insightful interview that reflects on the State President's recent State of the Nation address and his ambition of building a new city. And if you've not had your head in the sand, you'd know that's had a pretty big reaction from many commentators, both positive and negative. He's also leaned heavily in that State of the Nation address on the National Development Plan, which we covered in our first episode. Beyond the episodes, our plan is to bring you a number of roundtable discussions on topics and themes that listeners have requested or that we think would be of interest to those listeners. The land debate, transit-orientated development or TOD, inclusionary housing and universal access, with a specific angle around people living with disabilities, are all issues we are keen to address in the coming weeks and months. I refer a lot to we and us in the podcast, although so far you've only heard my voice as the anchor and interviewer, and we hope that will change before long as other presenters step into this space. There are a number of us working behind the scenes, and hopefully you'll hear their voices and voices of others before long. I also want to invite you, the listener, to get more involved directly. If you're using the Anchor podcast platform, each episode there has a voice message tool that allows you to leave comments. It hasn't yet been utilized. No one's given any comments as yet, but I think this is a very direct and useful way for you to feel involved and to actually get involved. What I would like to do is at the end of each month collate the comments and broadcast them as part of this monthly bulletin. You can also find us on Twitter, and we'll also put any documents that we discuss, at least a link to those documents via the Twitter platform. If you've engaged with the Lance Del Monte 3rd episode, you'd know we uploaded some of the documents there from the work of the General Motors Foundation. We'll be always giving you the opportunity to go a bit deeper in terms of the information at hand when that material is available. We've already had 120 downloads of the podcast, and we've reached as far afield as North Carolina in the USA, Hong Kong in the East, and the United Kingdom. I'd really ask you, if you can, please spread the word throughout your network. The strength of this podcast is really going to be in the diversity of the views and the quality of the commentary that we receive. When I first talked about putting the podcast together about 2 months ago, I had 3 main goals. Firstly, make it as good as I could, distinct theme tune, courtesy of Tribal Need, and as good a sound quality as I could manage, recognizing I've never recorded anything in my life. And I think some of the episodes you'd agree work better than others. Please bear with me as I find my own feet. Secondly, to try and reach at least 100 people by the end of the year. Well, we're at 120 listens within the first 2 weeks of us going live, so we seem to be doing something right, and hopefully we can make a push towards 1,000 listeners within the next few months. And thirdly, it really was to approach in the longer term the professional registration bodies such as SACPlan, UDISA and others to seek their endorsement and support, particularly in respect of the whole question of continuous professional development, or CPD. I was delighted when the day after the podcast went live, within 24 hours in fact, on the Anchor podcast platform, I received a call from the CEO of SACPlan, Martin Lewis, who himself is keen to consider ways we can use the podcast for that very purpose of CPD. So a much longer term ambition has been potentially realised within a much shorter period than I could have ever imagined. This last week has seen the very sad passing of 2 cultural icons, namely James Small and Johnny Clegg. James Small was a sporting icon and a winner of the Rugby World Cup that in so many ways transformed this country in 1995. When I arrived in the country in 1984, the previous year, he was certainly the biggest sporting personality, poster boy across every media publication, and that was well before he and his team went on to redefine history the following year at Ellis Park in that memorable final. Johnny Clegg also sadly passed after a prolonged fight against cancer. Johnny very much redefined for decades concepts of Ubuntu, integration, racial and cultural harmony. His music will continue to serve as a testimonial to his legacy and values for many, many decades. It will also serve as a timely reminder that even as individuals we can partner and fight for what is right, for what is good and for what is proper in society. And finally, we also celebrated Mandela Day, remembering Madiba in our various and different ways by acts of giving and selflessness. As his wife Gracia Michelle rightly reminded us, this should be the default and not the exception. In her words, Mandela Day is a reminder that any of us has the power to take initiative and drive transformation. Let us not look at Mandela Day as an event that we will be part of every year. We need to look at it as a pledge for the whole year that goes beyond one's daily activities. Decide what is the difference I can make to people over the year so that I can become a way of being, not just an event. I think those are powerful words from somebody who continues to lead by example. This Bulletin episode of Talking Transformation is dedicated to the memory of these three leaders and giants of South Africa, Hamba Madiba, James and Johnny.